when you came to America, people knew you. Well-known musicians knew of you.
They'd heard about me.
They had heard about
Yeah,
you.
they'd heard about me mostly from Miriam and from like musicians who'd come to South Africa and came back there talking about us.
What did that do for you? The fact that you were recognized, the name was recognizable by well-known folks who you looked up to from the records that you played, and what did that mean to you?
Well, the thing that I didn't kid myself about is that I hadn't had the training that the people I came here to. You know, I mean, I hadn't had the training that Louis Armstrong or Miles or Dizzy or Train had, and that's what I'd come for. I'd come for an education, and that's what I hungered for. I hungered for like the technological know-how, and that's why I went to Manhattan School for 4 years. You know, and in between that, I lived in jam sessions, man. You know, I mean, I was lucky in that through Miriam and Belafonte, I got to know all the top people. So I got to know all the sidemen and wherever they were doing sessions. And I came here actually, my aim was like everybody else who played the trumpet to play with Art Blakey. You know, and the jazz messages. That's as high as I wanted to go, and then to go back home and teach. You know, and impart, but everybody kept saying, no, but once you form your own group, you're going to take the limelight from me. And I said, what's the matter with these people? I'm not. and finally, and then Miles, you know, and Dizzy, and Belafonte, you know, they all said, and Les McCann said, man, why don't you form your own group? You know stuff that we don't know. Why don't you put some of that thing from your home in your music? And then something is going to come out that we don't have, and we'll learn something too. And Miles Davis put it very subtly. He said, if you put some of that shit from your home, and you put that shit with the shit you learned here, then that's going to be a motherfucker. I said, okay.
Now listen, when you look at that period, we're the interview is a short one, but we want to give people an idea of what's in the book. It does cover a lot of the personalities in America. It does cover a tremendous number of personalities abroad. But when you look at having come to America, who are three names that come top of mind that we should know about that made an impression on you?
Well, it's more than three names, but I think the ones that had the biggest impact on me were Harry Belafonte, you know, who not only mentored me but helped with Miriam to send me to school. Dizzy Gillespie, who like adopted me. And Miles Davis, who for me was the only person that I thought really knew himself, knew who he was and where he came from, and he didn't bite his tongue, you know. And he was for me very much like Malcolm X, you know, or Mandela, and you know, but like he did it in vernacular. He put it where it belonged, you know, and like he was one of the most honest people. Another person who affected me very much, like Miles and like Harry, because when it came to the rights of human rights of people, Harry Belafonte didn't bite his tongue, and it was I think the biggest fundraiser for human rights. So musicians who used their music to bring attention to the sufferings of their people is what attracted me most. And like Fela was like that.
Yeah.
And when Louis Armstrong said to Eisenhower, I'm not going out on goodwill tours for the State Department anymore until you stop bombing little black children in the South. I said, okay, so like, you know, it's not about just being famous. It's not just about being great. It's about what do you do, you know, with it, you know, because you can't remember. I was with Marvin Gaye. We were playing at the Apollo when he was with Tammy Terrell. He said, Hughesky, man, I really, you know, he called everybody Hughesky, Gesky, Temsky. He said, I really admire, man, I wish I could do like you know, like, I only sing about love. I said, well, why can't you, Marvin, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, 3 years later, he did What's Going On. But it was that thing that connected between me and him. You know, the same thing with Stevie. I met Stevie Wonder when he was still at the Michigan School for the Blind. But he kept saying, man, you keep singing them other songs. You know, I said, hey, you can't come from the suffering people and not sing about what they're going through. You know, and of course later on it became with many of them the rule. You know, so I think of all the people I've mentioned, Miles, Dizzy, and Belafonte really like got me because of that.
I want to talk about Miles for a minute, because when you bring up his name, it reminds me of the fact that Miles was an amateur boxer, and my mind goes back to a person in Allentown, one of the townships that you grew up in.
Alexander Township.
Alexandertown,
right.
And Rex. How
right.
close did Rex and Miles, if you were making a comparison?
Theo Tembu. Well, my mother, actually, when we moved to Alexander Township, it was a rough place. And I came from a township where people played tennis and played piano. And she said, you don't play tennis here, you don't play the piano, otherwise you're going to be running all the time. I said, what do I do? He said, people play soccer here and you better be able to box. And she was like at the Family Welfare Center where there was the boxing club, She said, I'll introduce you to Theo Tembu, who, by the way, today still is the trainer of Jake Matala.
Beautiful.
Of baby Jake Matala. And I see him from time to time, and he still trains boxers. And he said, he said to me, he said, I'm glad you remembered that you were a boxer, because I showed him the book. He said, because to defend yourself is not just physically. If you have the psychology to defend yourself, and you can apply it to your life, and if you're a good boxer, you can become a good example. He says, look at what Muhammad Ali did, But Miles, it gives you the confidence also, and not that you want to go around hitting anybody, but if you've got a good brain and you know a little bit about self-defense, it gives you the confidence to say things that I think you'd be intimidated about, to people who intimidate you, But the greatest thing about Miles is that he came from a very wealthy home, but didn't act like that. But he had the class and the style. He wasn't afraid of anybody, but he didn't offend anybody. And he was a very, very funny guy. But most of all, he never bit his tongue. He always told the truth. And he told it I talk too much. He told it in like one sentence. Everything I've said to you now.